Chapter 1: Introduction to the Human Body. So pulling out my summary notes. The human body consists of 6 structural organizations. Number 1, chemical. Number 2, cellular. Number 3, tissue. Number 4, organ. Number 5, system. And number 6, organisms. Number 6, organisms. The basic structural and functional living units of an organism and the smallest living units in the human body. So one cell is the smallest living unit of an organism in the human body. Tissues are a group of cells and the materials surrounding them that work together to perform a particular function. Organs are composed of 2 or more different types of tissues that have specific functions and usually have recognizable shapes. Systems consist of related organs that have a common function. An organism is a non-living individual. There are 11 systems of the human organism. Number 1, the integumentary system, the skeleton system, the muscular system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, the cardiovascular, lymphatic, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive systems. All organisms carry on certain processes that distinguish them from non-living things. The most important life processes of the human body are metabolism, responsiveness, movement, growth, differentiation, and reproduction. Homeostasis, balance at the equilibrium, is a condition of equilibrium in the body's internal environment produced by the interplay of the human body's regulatory processes. Body fluids are a dilute watery solution. Intercellular fluid, ICF, is inside cells, and extracellular fluid, ECF, is outside cells. Interstitial fluid is the ECF that fills spaces between tissue cells, plasma, and the ECF within blood cells. So the ECF is the extracellular fluid, which is outside the cells. Because it surrounds all body cells, interstitial fluid is called the body's internal environment. So it could be like the heat generated and the thermal environment of your first layer, like below the skin, in your blood vessels. That could be where the fluid is they're referring to. Disturbance of the homeostasis comes from external and internal stimuli and psychological stressors. When disruption of homeostasis is mild and temporary, responses of the body cells quickly restore balance in the internal environment. If disruption is extreme, regulation of homeostasis may fail. So they're basically saying that in a homeostasis stage, which is a perfectly balanced equilibrium where your body is functioning at its optimal and normal capacity, strikes that balance, it's going to disturb your, which is obvious. And the regulation of the balance of that environment might change. So for example, if I get a rash, my skin will be abnormal. I will break the barrier of risk for opening it to different infections or viruses to enter from the skin layer, because I got a rash, and rash has open pins that can easily get affected with different contamination of different things. So what I'm trying to say is that the skin, from a dermatology perspective, is supposed to be glowy and clean, right? with nothing on it, ideally. So when the rash comes, then that means my homeostasis of the skin layer, skin feedback loop is not working at its optimal, so the balance is lost. Most often the nervous and endocrine system acting together or separately regulate homeostasis. The nervous system detects body changes and sends nerve impulses to counteract changes in control condition. The endocrine system regulates homeostasis by secreting hormones. Now we're going to talk about the feedback system, which includes three components. Receptors monitor changes in control condition and send input to control center. Number 2, the control center sets the value at which a control condition should be maintained. Evaluate the input it receives from receptors. And number 3 component is effectors. Receive output from the control centers and produce a response effect that alters the control condition. Response reserves the original stimulus. The system is operating then at the negative feedback. If a response enhances the original stimulus, the system is operating by positive feedback. For example, blood pressure. When we take blood pressure and the control condition for the stimulus to cause the blood pressure to rise, the baroreceptors, pressure-sensitive nerve cells, the receptors in the blood vessels sends impulses input to the brain control center. Component 2, the brain sends impulses output to the heart effectors. As a result, the heart rate decreases, response and blood pressure decreases to normal, restoration of homeostasis. That's an example of a negative feedback. So number 1, why is it a negative feedback? Because the stimulus caused the blood pressure, which is a control condition, to rise, right? So that means the control condition was the blood pressure, and your blood pressure is not at homeostasis because it's rising. And the baroreceptor, pressure-sensitive nerve cells, the receptors in blood vessels send impulses to the brain. So component 3, the receptors send the signal to the effectors, and while they communicate, as a result, the heart rate decreases and the blood pressure decreases to normal, restoration of homeostasis. So it's trying its best to counterattack the imbalance in the homeostasis of rise in blood pressure, and it's countering that by sending signals to the control center, which is the brain, and then it's countering that back to the nerve cells, which as an output impulses to decrease the heartbeat. At least that's how I understand it right now. Now let's move into the positive feedback loop. So, perfect example of positive feedback loop when a mother is giving birth. The labor begins with the cervix of the uterus is stretched, aka the stimulus, and the stretch-sensitive nerve cells in cervix receptors and nerve cells impulses to the brain control center. The brain responds by releasing oxytocin, which stimulates the uterus effectors to contract more forcefully in response. Movement to the fetus further stretches the cervix. More oxytocin is released and even more forceful contraction occurs. The cycle is broken when the oxytocin is released. That's when the contraction is happening, when the baby is trying to come out of the womb. And right when homeostasis state is stored is when the baby fully comes out of the womb, the uterus, and it comes into the world, which is the birth of the baby in essence. So that's when the balance is restored and the contraction and is not releasing anymore to that high intensity. Homeostasis state, balance or equilibrium. because any disturbance in the homeostasis state on your overall body can lead to disorder, diseases, and even death.